Okay, you found your dream home or investment. Now it's all about figuring out what price you should pay for this house and how much it is worth, right? So this is the comparison framework I use, me and my team at Life Buyers Agency. We apply this to every transaction. So this framework gives us a really good way of analyzing what price we should pay for a particular house or if it's even worth that list price. But the first thing we do, guys, before we dive in to analyze each property from this framework, what we do, right, is look at the initial price guide of the property. Then we look at properties that have sold at a similar price guide. And then what we're looking for is properties that are very similar in nature to the one we're going to buy. So it almost has to be like for like. And then that gives us the ability to start to benchmark these different parts of the framework towards that property, all right? So the first part of the framework, we want to make sure we look at the land size of this property and its comparison to properties that have previously sold. Is it a smaller land parcel than the property that is sold? Is it a larger land parcel? Is the land itself different in nature? Does it have an elevation? Is there views? All of those sort of factors come into consideration when you're looking at the land, but its land size is very important and it gives you a really good indication on whether or not you're paying a good price for the property. And when you benchmark it to those properties that have sold similar to that, if its land size is in alignment, then you know you might be in the ballpark there. So land size is the first thing, guys. The second thing is build quality. So build quality, really important here. What we're looking at are things like if the fixtures and fittings are great, if they're high end, if they're low end, if they're cheap, if the property was built more recently or 20, 30 years ago, that will determine what type of material it was built out of and when it was built. Therefore, you have to factor in those various premiums. Because when you think about it, there could be a differentiation in terms of build quality. That house might have the same amount of bedrooms, same amount of land size, the same amount of car, bathroom, but in terms of build quality, it's different, right? The property that you might have your eye on is more of a high-end finish, and the property that you're comparing it to is more of a lower-end finish. Therefore, it's going to be different in price, right? You have to be considerate on those things. So build quality is a very important one. Then we're looking at things such as how many bedrooms does it have, how many bathrooms and car, and really cross-referencing whether or not they're like for like in terms of the amount of bedrooms, the amount of car space, and the amount of bathrooms. Because if a property has an extra bedroom, then you know from a price point of view that might cost a little bit more, or if it has one less bedroom, it's going to cost a lot less, or even car spaces for that example, and bathrooms. So you want to look at those parts of the house itself and start to benchmark those against comparable sales that are like for like. And the last thing we do is we look at the floor area of a property, because you can have a property on the same land size, it can be built in terms of the same quality, quite nice. It could have the same amount of bathrooms, bedroom, and car spaces. However, the floor area under roof is a lot smaller. So that means that the bedrooms are smaller, the bathrooms are smaller, the car spaces are smaller, the living areas are smaller. So you're still getting all of those bedrooms and bathrooms, but the floor area in itself is smaller. Therefore, you get less house. So from terms of price, if you are benchmarking it to a property that's sold for a similar price, but it's a lot bigger in nature, then you know you might have to make some concessions there on price, guys. So if you apply this comparison framework when substantiating value for your next home and next purchase and figuring out what price you should pay, more often than not, it's going to really give you an idea on what you should pay, and then you can figure out the value of this property in comparison to others when you apply this lens. So I just want to finish off by saying all of this is the analysis and comparison framework you should be applying to the property itself. But there's a bunch of work that you need to do before that, which is making sure it's in the same suburb. Then you want to establish then, once the property is in the same suburb, that's a good tick. What pocket of the suburb this property sits in? Is it the same pocket as the comparables you're looking at? Because the pocket of the suburb can be the difference in price as well. A property 2 minutes down the road may be in an inferior pocket. A property that's 5 minutes down the road is maybe in a more superior pocket than what you're looking at here in terms of the comparable properties. So suburb, pocket, and then street. The last thing is street. So you want to make sure the properties that you're comparing this property to sits on the same street or similar streets, because there are better streets than others in particular suburbs and pockets. There are some streets that have more street appeal, more elevation, some streets that are just bigger in size, some streets that just have better quality stock overall, more desirability. So these are the three things that you need to also cross-reference before you get to this stage of the buying process. Cheers, guys, and good luck.